The book, The Idea of Women in Fundamentalist Islam, by Lumina Razum Sheila Day, begins with a brief introduction of Islamic fundamentalists. Sheila Day analyzes the writings and political religious beliefs and ideologies of 9 Islamic fundamentalists. These 9 Islamic fundamentalists are composed of both Sunni and Shiites, and all of them are men except for one. These 9 fundamentalists interpret the Quran in a way that stresses a subordinate status of women and defines women's role in Islamic society as one under men. They use their interpretation of the Quran to establish evidence and support of their ideology on the status of women with the hope of attaining a larger political following, more political power, and a way to manipulate law, all the while following the main absolute tenets of the Quran: belief in one God and Muhammad as God's messenger. Sheila Day also examines how women's role has been applied in constructing Islamic society. Sheila Day structures the book by focusing on one fundamentalist each chapter. After she introduces her main purpose of the book, in which she attempts to examine the 9 fundamentalists and how they construct a woman's role in Islamic society. For each fundamentalist, she provides the reader with a brief background on the fundamentalist's life, work, and ideology. Then she analyzes and challenges some of the misconceptions the fundamentalists present on the role of women. Then she concludes the book by talking about the key themes of all the fundamentalists believe in. Sheila Day states that all 9 fundamentalists agree that patriarchy, a social system in which power is held by men, is essential to the reform of the Muslim community. Although the fundamentalists differ on how and what they interpret in the Quran, they all agree that traditional Muslim family plays a pivotal role in achieving a true Islamic state. There are 3 key themes discussed by the 9 fundamentalists on the role of women: domesticity, or being a homemaker as women's primary role, differences between the genders, and the physical, biological, and physiological differences between men and women. Because of these 3 key themes, the fundamentalist ideal society is one of patriarchy, where Muslim women are veiled and excluded from the public domain. All of the fundamentalists agree that women are spiritually equal to men, but they also assert that the belief of a woman's main role in society is that of being a homemaker. They believe that women are inherently dangerous due to their biological makeup. Because of this inability to control themselves, women cannot contribute anything worthwhile to society, and thus needs to be controlled or suppressed by men. Due to the physical and psychological differences between genders, the fundamentalists envision a sexually segregated society as ordained by the Quran and Sharia, so it can enhance a man's productivity, rationality, judgment, and concentration. This separation prevents men from being distracted by women. Men are seen as not being able to control their sexual desire of women, and therefore removing temptation, aka women, will allow men to be productive in society. Women are thus seen as seducers, highly sexualized beings with no social role outside of the home unless approved by their husband or protector. And if they are to go outside, they must wear the hijab at all times. The fundamentalists also state that because women menstruate and have to raise children, it is necessary for them to be confined to the home. Islam and the Ummah, or Muslim community, is not a united entity and has only one way and does not have one way of interpreting the Quran. Because of this, fundamentalists can interpret and follow the Quran as they see fit. Sheila Day discusses how the fundamentalists contradict many of their assertions, noting that fundamentalist ideologies which freely withdraw women's rights are ceded back to them when it serves the fundamentalist's purpose or serves their own interests. This reinforces the idea of ijtihad, the ability to interpret the Quran for yourself in a way that benefits you. The Islamic movement, also known as Islamism or Islamic fundamentalism, attempts to implement conservative Islamic values in all of the spheres of Muslim life. fundamentalism affects women's status and role in public, adopting a role of both modernization and traditionalism. Dowd, similar to Shayla Day, analyzes the way the Islamic movement affects women's role and status, saying that they have to be involved in political movements and feminism as long as it advocates and promotes women to become better mothers and females under traditional patriarchal ideology. Dowd also talks about how Islamism encourages education for girls while promoting separate sex education. These are just a few examples of how fundamentalists support both modernization and traditionalism. The concept of keeping the sexes separate is a key theme to fundamentalists, discussed by Shayla Day. Shayla Day examined how the 9 fundamentalists use a fundamentalist ideology to interpret the Quran in a way that best manipulates law to obtain power. Logic examines the politics of Islamic veiling, looking at the many ways the headscarf is used as a symbol of power. According to Voljic, the headscarf is not solely of a religious symbol or practice, nor is its regulation merely an issue of the individual's rights or liberty. It can also be a symbol of power. Different Islamic countries, theorists, ideologists can choose to support and enforce or not support and enforce the wearing of the hijab, but ultimately will address and interpret the Quran in a way that benefits the community or majority population. In summary, fundamentalists are merely one community of Muslims interpreting the Quran in a way that benefits them. It is the choice of each Muslim community to determine what to stress or not stress from the Quran. Shayla Day analyzes how 9 fundamentalists denote a Muslim woman's role in society, but notes that main contradictory statements and interpretations of the Quran are used throughout their work. This stresses the concept of ijtihad and that women's bodies are constantly used as battlefields for power.